Welcome to MOMCAST. I'm your host, Emma Jade. It's all over the news, all over your social media feeds, the war between Israel and Hamas. And today on MOMCAST, we are taking you to Tel Aviv. If you've watched NBC over the last decade and beyond, you've probably seen a report from Jay Gray. Maybe it was at the Olympics or one of the royal weddings, or more recently in Israel, at the center of this conflict. Jay and I have been friends for years. I've admired his incredible devotion to journalism because when there's a big story, happy or sad, Jay is there, asking the questions you and I want and need answers to, serving us tirelessly, and he's doing it right now in Israel. I've got the interview that you have got to see, going behind the scenes with Jay, how he handles stories like this, telling stories of people at their worst. I mean, imagine going on a work trip and packing a helmet and a bulletproof vest. Jay's got 3 kids and a wife at home. What he hopes you and I take away from his reports in Israel, that's coming up. But you have been asking questions about this war. I threw it out on MOMCAST. What do you need answers to? I've got the top 3 questions that you asked, so let's dive into it in your top stories. First question, why did Hamas attack on October 7th? Now, I just want to put this out there that the answers to some of these questions are so complicated. They go back so far. This is a very short Cliff Notes version. But the reason given at the time by a Hamas spokesman was that enough is enough. At the time of the attack, the U.S. was working on a peace deal between Israel and Saudi Arabia. Hamas said the attack was a message to any country working on peace with Israel. The relationship between Israel and Hamas is complicated and has such deep roots. Tensions between Israel and Hamas have existed since before Israel's founding in 1948. Israel captured Gaza from Egypt in the 1967 war, then withdrew its troops and settlers in 2005. Gaza, home to some 2 million Palestinians, fell under Hamas's control in 2007. Hamas and Israel have fought several wars before the attack on October 7th, the last between the two happening in 2021, which lasted 11 days and killed at least 250 people in Gaza, 13 Israelis. Now the top question that we got. What is Hamas? Well, Hamas is an Islamist organization with a military wing. The group considers Israel an illegitimate state and has called for its downfall. They are also very vocal about wanting to rid the world of Jews. Hamas is designated a terrorist organization by the United States, by the European Union, and by Israel. As mentioned, Hamas rules Gaza. It's a small strip of land about the size of Philadelphia, bordering Israel and Egypt. The majority of Gaza's population are descendants of refugees who were either expelled or forced to leave their homes in 1948 in what is now Israel. Gaza is walled, it's fenced in, so travel in and out is extremely restricted under even normal circumstances. Okay, last question we got quite a bit was, where does the U.S. stand? President Biden visited the region this week and clearly stated from the beginning of this conflict that the United States stands with Israel, saying in Tel Aviv, "We will not let you ever be alone." The president also announced $100 million in new U.S. funding for humanitarian assistance in Gaza and Israeli-occupied West Bank. Okay, I know there are more questions. This is a situation that changes by the minute. 12news.com, NBC News, those are both great resources for you to get even more updates. NBC News especially, they have minute-by-minute updates for you. As for sources that you're finding on social media, that can be tricky. And some tips for you. Make sure that you are getting your facts from verified news accounts. And if you hear something, go to more than one outlet to check and double-check that story. Let's get over to our interview with Jay Gray in Tel Aviv. Okay, I want to give you a little bit of background here because we set this up in a pretty unconventional way. This all actually happened through Instagram. So Jay and I have been friends for years now. We worked day and night together in Russia for the Sochi Games. We see each other through TV when I'm anchoring the news and tossing to another big story where Jay Gray is always live at. So I texted him when he got into Israel, asking if he'd be willing to tell us what it's really like over there. What does it feel like? What has he seen? And he could not have been more accommodating. Our interview was actually interrupted by a full-on power outage at his hotel. And if you listen closely, you can actually hear missiles zooming overhead. He had to take calls, of course. He finally got his food delivered after a 20-plus hour day. But we talked about what it's really like, covering the biggest story in the world. Here's my interview with Jay Gray. You woke up, I mean, the last time we were talking was 3:30 a.m. your time. I went to bed, I got kids off to school, and you haven't slept yet. What was your day like today?
It was a busy day. We had a busy night as far as the aerial assault here. It was hectic, but the Iron Dome is wonderful over Tel Aviv, so nothing really got through. And then a quiet day. We went to the marketplace and talked to some people about the president's visit and just about in general the feelings about the war and the ground assault that is everyone says is on the way. So so yeah, it's. I mean, as you can imagine, being on the ground here, every a lot of the businesses and everything is closed, and there's just a real uneasy tension for everyone here, Emma. It's just it's very difficult right now.
When you were talking to people like in the market, give me the vibe that you were feeling from people. What was it? Is everyone just terrified? I'm sure you are scared.
You know what's amazing is that most of the people here know someone or have someone that's serving right now. They've called up so many reservists here, and everybody in Israel practically serves in the army. So they all know somebody who is intimately connected to this, and they also are still not over the horror of what happened, the attack that started all of this. So yeah, I mean, there's still a lot of shock. There's still a lot of there's a lot of frustration and a lot of anger and pain as well. We saw some guys in the market, the open air market that's not far from where we are. There was a young Palestinian man who was there who lives in the area. We found out later, and who was just trying to do some shopping and clearly wasn't there for any nefarious purposes, but was initially verbally assaulted, and then they had to hold people back just out of the frustration, and then it was a very tense and it was a troubling scene, if that makes sense, Emma. That I don't want to sound too traumatic, but it's just it's not a good. No one here is in a good place right now.
And that's a lot coming from you. I mean, you have covered every major event from the good to the bad to the ugly. When you got the call to come out to Israel, tell me a little bit about what that was like. What's that process like? And then personally, how is that for you? I mean, you're a father of three, so making decisions to go straight into a war zone has got to just take your breath away.
It does. It's something. I mean, I would be lying if I didn't say, the first few nights there was no sleep for me, and it was less about the conditions and the situation here, as it was, worrying about my family and worrying about uh, where they are, where I left them at, and getting back to them eventually. To be maybe too honest, it was sorry, you're about to hear some rumbling. Apparently, they're yeah, they've got something going overhead, and that'll continue throughout the evening. But um, it it's something that you think about, and I think as my kids are now much older, and they get what I'm doing, and they as a dad, I love saying this, but they have a little sense of pride that everybody's talking about this war right now, and my dad is there. I would be lying if I told you that they weren't concerned. I hear from my youngest, my daughter, now more than I have heard from her in years. So that's kind of a nice side benefit of being here. But it's different. I was in Afghanistan. I spent a lot of time in Ukraine a year or so ago, and each one is different in a different set of circumstances. And so yeah, to say that if someone tells you that it doesn't weigh on them and that they don't think about home and think about their loved ones, then they're not telling you the truth when it comes to a story like this.
It's just so backwards because we're reporting on the biggest event that's happening right now and everyone's trying to leave, but you're going to, the place where everyone's trying to get out of. How do you, as a person, as a human being, not as a journalist, because I know that we separate the two very often, but how do you grapple with that?
For me, I get an immense amount of satisfaction out of sharing stories that otherwise might not be told. And in these situations, you find some of the most amazing stories to tell. And I think their stories, this isn't about me and it isn't about my telling stories, but you asked why, and why is because I want those voices to be heard, and some of those voices would not be heard if it weren't for people like you and me showing up at places like this. So for me, that's what continues to drive me. And I'll be honest, I'm an old man. I've been doing this a long time. I don't necessarily have to be here anymore, but I really cherish the opportunity to be here, if that makes sense.
Which sounds, I mean, cherish the opportunity. You're in the middle of war, Jay. So what is that? Try and verbalize, like, what is that feeling to you of what you're doing for us in the US?
It's raw emotion, and it's sharing that raw emotion, and it's sharing the lives of people who will forever be changed, and hopefully, it's people back home watching and understanding that there's a lot more out there than the fact that the cleaners didn't get the stain out of your nice shirt, and that your car broke down on the way to work. The people I spent time with today don't have a home. They left the southern part of Israel for fear that the fighting's going to expand, and they came up here on their own with children and no place to stay, but they did it to save their children. And so I hope people see that and understand uh, that a the world's a lot smaller than we thought it was when we were growing up, and b that while you have issues, and we all do, and I don't discount that, but when you frame that in the perspective of somebody who is not only uh, has the possibility to lose everything they have right now, but to lose generations of their families, is to me, I think something we all need to hear about, that we all need to learn from.
When you've heard all of those stories all day long and you're in the middle of it, those quiet moments when it's time to go to bed and when it's time to just like, you know, you are
Nope.
human. So how do you do it? How do you do it?
Oh, you're getting me, Emma Jade.
Uh,
It's I didn't go to bed last night. I called after we talked a couple hours later. I called I called my wife, I called my daughter, I called each of my sons individually, and I just had to talk to them, and I had to hear their voices, and just know that they were okay. And that I'll do that a lot on this trip, regardless of how long it may last. It's you don't go to bed sometimes, and you don't. There's no easy way to just compartmentalize something like this. It's different, but I still think it's vitally important.
we see it on the news, we see it on our social media accounts. You're living there. Are there things that you want people here to know that you're seeing?
Yeah, we see on the news the good guys and the bad guys a lot of the times. There's so many people in between, and especially in this situation. And there's so many people that this is happening to, that it's of none of their accord. None of them asked for this. None of them wanted this. And now they are in the middle of it. And that's on both sides of this. And this is a fight that's been going on for hundreds and hundreds of years. And this likely won't end that fight. But there are so many people that are caught in this now, that have no control over what comes next, and they're trying to. It sounds so basic. They're just trying to find a way to survive and live, and figure out what comes next. And like I said, it's different here than it was in Ukraine. It's vastly different than it was in Afghanistan, but it's all the same. It's all the same emotion and the same struggle.
So you're seeing these people leaving their homes. Where are they going? Is there infrastructure in place to house people, to feed them? What's happening?
No, and a lot of the people that we see here in Tel Aviv, they will find relatives or friends. They will go through their local faith and find a place to stay, but it's not long term. It's not something that's going to be there for them when this is all said and done. But think about this, Emma. They're all doing this not knowing what's long term. They don't know what their long term is. They don't know what their family's long term is. They don't know what their son, who was in the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, retired and had a job as a tech man here, and now has been called back and gone to the southern border where he's preparing for a ground invasion. They don't know that he's coming back. They don't know what's going to happen, and and they're still trying to figure out where they go and how they handle tomorrow.
Right now, you're in Tel Aviv. You have the Iron Dome.
Yep.
Can you explain that to people?
It's amazing technology, and it's basically an air defense system that any time a rocket, a missile, any type of air assault is launched on Tel Aviv, or really any area across Israel, it's immediately met with anti-aircraft devices, and it's undefeated. It's been amazing. I remember the first day in was a very active day here for me, and coming out of Ukraine, where when you heard a missile or a mortar in Ukraine, you looked at your security and he told you, "We're fine. It's going the other way," or "Dive under the truck.
Oh my
This
gosh,
is going to
Jay.
be a bad deal." Here, nobody flinches because they have such faith in the technology and the weaponry. And it's been amazing to see it in action. It's yeah, I mean, I'll I've been here a few days, and I've already become a bit more lax with the idea that, yeah, I hear it, but it's going to be okay.
Why does this one feel different than other wars? What's really setting it apart for you?
I I just the history involved and the inability to find an end to the conflict, and for me, having been in this region before,
Mm.
the intensity of it now. The Israeli Defense Forces are so well respected as a unit, and for this to have happened on their watch is shocking. And there are a lot of people in Israel that are stunned, frustrated, and believe that this was maybe one of the biggest mistakes ever, to not know that this attack was coming. And so now to see the response, and to have them say that they are going to remove Hamas from the face of the earth, is just the intensity of this is much more extreme. It feels like the early stages of war every day. And I know we're still early into this, but after the first couple of attacks in other places, you kind of settle into a rhythm of attacks and bombings, and moving forward and moving back, and all of that. In this one, it just seems like it's go, 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 has been from the start, and they're finding new ways to go, 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 go.
And I don't want to make you, because I know that, we're Jay Gray here. But when you're talking
No,
to your kids, what do you say? I hate to even say this, Jay, but
say it.
what do you say? Do you say a goodbye? Do you say, hey, I'm going to probably the scariest place in the world right now?
No, I don't. When I make sure that I talk to them all before I leave,
Okay.
and I just tell them, my daughter, who's a goofball, is always the one like, "I get your air miles if you don't come back," and I'm okay. I want you to have them, honey. The boys, they're horrible people anyway. But no, I mean, we will joke around a little bit just to break the tension. But
Yeah.
the talk with us always before I leave is, okay, I'll see you soon. Everything will be all right. I'm kind of a softie anyway, so I say I love you a lot to them, but I say it a lot more now. And I find that they say it a lot more, especially my oldest boy, who's 26 now. Um, when I get some "I love you" text from him, then I know something's up.
That's when you
But
know that you're really in a dangerous place.
but I'll tell you, like, when I called him last night, and when I call them, like, when I need to hear from them because that's what I need to kind of keep me going.
Yeah.
I we talk about junk
Yeah.
because I like being a part of their day, and hearing about their day, and we don't talk about what I'm doing until afterwards. Most times we don't. We just It's just not. I don't think it's conductive to a good hang up for any of us in that situation. I will say, and I think it's gotten different as I've gotten even older, but I get a lot more emotional with him now, in these instances, which I think for me, and I can't believe I say things to you like this, but For me, I think that's good the way it should be. I feel good about that. I like them knowing how much I care and how emotional it is for me. And so, um, to me, that little lump and the tear is a good thing, and it does. I mean, you didn't ask me this, but it does help me keep going because I get it out of the way. If that makes any sense, okay, whew, I talked to them, they're fine, we're all okay, let's go.
Do you think this one has been so, I mean, it's captured and you can't go anywhere without seeing it. Does it feel like that to you, even being there? Does it feel
Does.
more tense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's a couple of things. I think it's the longstanding history of problems here, but it was kids at a music festival that were just enjoying a holiday weekend. And add to that the level of violence and the horrible acts that have been discussed, I think capture people's attention, which is bad to say, but you want me to be honest? I think that's a big part of it.
Okay, this is my last question because we're running out of time and I've taken so much of your time and I just feel awful because I know you're so busy.
You know
But
why I got up a second ago?
what?
They brought me a pizza.
Oh, you gotta eat, Jay. Oh my gosh.
No, that's a good thing.
You
That's
poor
a great
guy.
thing.
Okay, go eat. I
No,
love you
what do you
so
want to talk
much.
to me about?
But my last thing is just, again, something that you wish we over here in America, in the US, what should we know about what's happening there? What do you really want to convey? Your work over there, everything you're doing.
It's human. And I don't think people ascribe human feelings and emotions when they watch it on the news and they see the missiles and they see that even when you see some of the horrible video and pictures from what's happened here, the things that are going on behind those pictures and behind that video are real life. And the things that happen a day after the bomb hits a school in Gaza and the news has gone somewhere else, those are the things that I wish people, and I don't wish it in a sense of, boy, I wish you could be here and have a part of that. But I wish you could feel and understand the rawness of the emotion, the overwhelming capacity for people in such dire conditions to come together and to be together and to help one another. It's amazing to see some of that and some of the things I've seen in the wake of those situations are some of the most touching and unbelievable things I've ever seen.
We can't thank Jay enough for his time and for a reminder to try and focus on those real stories of people coming together, even in such horrific tragedy. I saw this post, one of my favorite follows on Instagram, Sharon McMahon. You might know her as Sharon Says So on Instagram. She shared some words written by one of her former students, and I wanted to relay it over to you. But even in these dark moments, we must remember that it's truly a blessing to be alive, to continuously live in fear, to be consumed by anger, or to succumb to the perils of dangerous rhetoric only benefits those who wish to intentionally, divisively sow hate and create chaos for their own political gain. The post goes on to say, living well in the face of those who loathe our very existence, if only to celebrate our humanity, our resilience, our survival, may their memory be a blessing, may our joy be a revolution. Thank you so much for watching MOMCAST. Remember, the MOMCAST conversations don't end here. Be sure to join me during the week online. Just search MOMCAST on Instagram or follow me at Emma Jade TV. We'll see you right here next week on MOMCAST.